In this lesson, we're going to work on an app that collects a text from a user and displays it on another text view. So we have an edit text here, a button, and a text view. What's going on here? Let's have a look at the code. So for the UI, it's pretty straightforward. The edit text has an ID of eTXT input. Then we have the button has an ID of btn send. Then we have our text view that has an ID of txt output. So that's all for the UI. Let's go to the code. That's where we dance. So firstly, I create variables of the button, edit text, and text view. So now I use find view by ID so I can work with them. So now I set a click listener on the button. So what's going on here? I have two methods here. The first is perform operation, which takes in a string, calls a method called getName, appends this name to the string it got. We now set the text of the txt output. So what is going on in getName? GetName is simply a method that sleeps for 5 seconds, then returns a name, John. So this will simulate you trying to go to a database or a network to retrieve some data. So when the button is clicked, we get the message from the edit text, passing on to perform operation. Perform operation will get the name from the method getName, add the name to the message, and then put out the output. So when we run this, we can see what's on your mind. Right, library. Once I click send, find out that the UI is hanging. The UI was frozen for some while, but at the end it ended up showing John library, which it's supposed to do. According to the code, it should have John, colon, and the message. Since my message was library, it should have John, colon, library. But have a look at how long it took to actually display the message. Let's say I want to change my message to awesome library. And I click send. You can see I can't do anything on the UI. After some seconds, what I typed eventually displayed. Sometimes you can't speed up the long process because it's meant to be long. Probably like a long network call to a database. But what we can do, however, is to avoid the whole app from freezing when that process is being run. Like in this case, if a user sends awesome, the whole application freezes up. What we want is for the message to be sending while I can do other things with the application. I can run the whole process in the background using AsyncTask. To do that, I'll create a private class inside this class. I will extend AsyncTask. So let's go on and do it. When you extend AsyncTask, you would provide 3 types. In this particular example, I am using string void string. So what is that for? The first is for params, second is for progress, and the third is for the results. For this example, I'm going to be sending the message into this AsyncTask. Because the message is a string, I'll leave it as string. So progress represents the type of progress units published during the background computation. I'm going to leave it as void. Sometimes you want to publish a progress. For example, if you're trying to download a file and you want to update the user how far it has gone, to give the user an idea of how much time is remaining before it completes. For this situation, I leave it as void because I'm not publishing any progress. Then, the next very important type is the result. This represents the type of result that will be returned after the background operation is finished. Because we have a method here which you want to run in the background, and that method returns a string, our result will be a string. When you have an async task, you need to override at least one method, which in this case will be do in background. Now, what does do in background do? Whatever is found in do in background would be run in the background. Now, there are other methods you can override. There is on pre-executes. So, let's say you want to do something on the UI before running it in the background. You can override on pre-execute. You can also override on progress update. So normally this is what you use to publish the progress, but since it's void, we don't need that. Then there's on post execute. That is called after do in background is done with this process, and whatever is passed from doing background is received on post execute. So let's override on post execute. So Control O, and I look for on post execute. You're allowed to input one or more strings when you're calling this async task, but we know that I'm just going to pass in one message. So in this case, that message will be in position 0. It's possible to pass in more than one. So I'll come here and say string. Give me the first string that's passed. I know that that's the only one that is passed there. I can now come here and call get name to get the name, and I have an output which says name plus message, just how we did before. Now I will return the output. So I can come over to on post execute. I can remove this. And I will say txt output dot set text s, which is the string passed from here. The string passed from here is what is returned from here. So everything here is done in the background. This is the major work. When everything is done, please pass the string and let me run this on the UI thread. So anything here is going to be run on the UI thread. Here is the background process. So how do we use this async task? Instead of saying perform operation, I will remove that and I'll say new get output in background dot execute. Now, because it accepts a string, one or more strings, I'll just pass in the message. I could pass in multiple messages, but this will be position 0, position 1, but I'm passing just one. So that is why here I told it just give me the string in position 0, because we know that it's only a message we're going to pass in here. So once this executes, to run this in the background and then set the text. While this is running in the background, our UI will be free to do other things. And you would notice that we wouldn't have that app freeze we had before. So let's run this. If I say, what's on your mind? Alright, library. I can click send and I can still do my stuff. And here it came. So it came at the right time. Let me write, I love library. I click send and I can still do things on my app. It ran the command in the background, and when it was ready, it displayed the output on the text view. That is how you run background task using AsyncTask on Android. You would need this when doing network calls because you're not allowed to perform network operations on the UI thread. All these operations can run on the UI thread because they are fine. Android will allow you to do that. But if you actually try to perform a network operation on the UI thread, Android wouldn't allow you to do that. In fact, your app will crash. I'll put the link to the code in the supplementary materials for you to download from GitHub. And talking of network requests, in the next lessons, we're going to learn how to perform simple network requests on Android. We would have an application that gets an image from the network and displays it on your app.